Yes, that's right. It's Joe here live for Joyrider TV, back with some more Q&A where I'm going to be talking about some catamaran sailing problems, some catamaran sailing solutions for all sorts of catamaran sailing boats, which people sail. Yes, there we go. Apparently using some key words at the start of a broadcast like this means that it's more likely to end up being presented to people who look for keywords. So there we go. I think I'm going to dive in with saying hello to everybody who is checking in already. So hello to Rachel, who is first off the start line. Great to have you on board. Hello to Ryan in Maui. Hope it's all going well there. Hope everyone had a great Thanksgiving yesterday, I believe that was. Yeah, I hope everyone had a lovely time who that applies to. Hello to Boris in Florida. Yeah, nice to have you with us, Boris. And hello to Moto Dude. Sunny but cold here in Central Florida. Oh, Levi. All right. Moto Dude is Levi. There we go. We're learning people's names. All right. And we've got Lee on board in Big Bear, California. The NSC Viper 16 in Newquay, Cornwall. Everybody is in. And hello to Trisha. And I did spot, Trisha, that you've already got the ball rolling in keeping the Q&A ad-free with the super sticker before. So thanks very much for that. Thanks very much to Lee for the super sticker. All right, so just to let you know, it has been the most ridiculous storm conditions here today, with some lightning strikes really close by to the house. And the internet has been like the electricity, a bit in and out. So hopefully we're gonna last the duration of this broadcast, because we've got some great topics to speak about. All right, who else is on board? We've got Minnesota Outdoors North. Gary, thanks for tuning in. Glad you could make it. All right, Joe from Hilton Head is with us. Yes, Joe, that's right. Yes, if you hadn't got the memo, yes, I'm coming back to Hilton Head for the I'm not calling it the Halloween regatta, but the regatta at the end of October, the 51st anniversary regatta next year at Hilton Head. That is the only one that I've got actually written in the diary. So if anybody else wants me to come to their event, you need to get in there quickly before I go somewhere else at that time. Very nice. Yeah. All right. So I'm going to dive into the first big topic, and that is, what is the most common cause of sticking the nose in and pitch poling your catamaran? In the last 2 weeks, I've been recording what I'm calling the classroom series of tutorial videos, which are going to be available on Patreon or for YouTube channel members as of the start of December. In fact, on Patreon, it's available now. Yeah, the first 3 modules are already there. And I just recorded a module on power control. And there is an element of power control which I think needs to be addressed. And that is bearing away without sheeting out when it's windy. Okay, this is not applicable if you're sailing with a spinnaker. That is the only difference to this. But if you're sailing without a spinnaker, 2 sails, and you're on any point of sail at all, when it is windy, when it is hull flying conditions, or hull lifting conditions, if you turn your boat away from the wind, especially if you're in a gust, but if you turn your boat away from the wind without easing sheet, main sheet, then there is a very strong chance that you are going to stick the bow of your boat in. There we go. That's that one done. Yeah, so where does this come from? Hussein's on board with the super sticker. Thank you very much for jumping in there, Hussein. And yes, the classroom series was Hussein's idea, and I thought it was a great idea. So that is why I've been putting that together. Just to say a bit more about this, yes, there's 3 modules already ready to go, which are on Patreon, and they'll be going out to YouTube channel members as of the start of December. And then I'll be recording and putting out 1 more module each week. Each module is 5 10-minute lessons on a theme. So 50 minutes each week, which would be enough for anyone to digest in a week. And then there'll be new modules going out until the start of April. And by that time, there will be 17 hours of video to get through. So I'd suggest getting in there early. All right. RJ Fleet is on board in the live chat, visiting SoCal. Is that South California? I believe. I think that's heading to snowy Minnesota on Sunday. Love the information you impart. Cheers. Yes, it's my pleasure to do so. And Paulie Paul 111 straight in there with a super sticker. Thank you very much, Paul. I'm guessing that your name is Paul. All right. Yes, Moto Dude. I have to scroll back to remind Levi. Yes, it has been quite a good time in filming, and I've even made a purchase of a new camera for making this tutorial series because I want it to be nice. Back to the pitch pole, or back to this this bit of kind of power control. Why am I sticking the bows in? So upwind sailing, when it's windy, what's important is we control the power on the boat by sailing close to the wind. So sailing close to the wind means that what tack are we on? We're on port tack. So the outside telltale is the green one. Let's say we've got port and starboard color-coded telltales, and the port one is a red one, and that is going to be flying almost vertically depending on how windy it is. But we can sail super high to the wind for the telltales. But while I've been coaching, what a lot of people are doing, and what I see out on the water a lot, is that people aren't sailing close enough to the wind when sailing upwind, which means they're going off more on a reaching course, hunting for power. So not allowing the inside telltale to lift like this, but instead they're feeling like they don't have enough power to sail as close to the wind as this. So bearing away, but being on the boat in a kind of upwind position, like if this is the crew, upwind position, even if the helm isn't trapezing, which quite often the case. So quite far forwards. So if you start heading off the wind like this, in this kind of position, then you are going to stick the bow in. But why is it that they can't sail close enough to the wind to get this inside telltale totally lifting? I'll tell you why. It's because of not sheeting in enough on the main. That is what it is. And it's all about the main sheet. So this is our back view of the boat. In fact, if we could just move him down a little bit. The back view of the boat, doesn't matter which type of boat we're talking about. But what we need is to have the main sheet in tight. And when we're talking about the main sheet being in tight, the way we can determine that, because different boats will have the main sheet blocks a different distance apart when it's tight. So on a boat like an F-18, you're quite likely to have the blocks like this far apart when it's as tight as it will go. Same on a Hobie 18 or what else? Nacra 500. Like the blocks are going to be apart, and it's only actually the Hobie 14 and 16 where the blocks come all the way together when it's as tight as it will go. So the way that we can quickly visualize, is the main sheet in tight enough, is the top main sheet block sitting directly above the bottom main sheet block? Are they in a vertical aspect like that? And that is how we can see very quickly and clearly, are we sheeted in tight? It should also have been reasonably hard to get it in that tight as well. So that is what is important. The reason why that's important, main sheet in tight, means yes, we can point the boat close to the wind so that the inside telltale on the jib is going vertical. And if you feel that to sail that high with the main sheet in that tight, you really feel like the boat is hardly moving, then that is the time when we need to take other measures to depower the boat. Have you already cranked the downhaul on as hard as it will go? Have you? Have you, if it's on a Hobie 16, have you eased off a little bit of rig tension? Just like that much on the jib halyard makes the biggest difference, just to loosen it, which will allow the mast to come more back like that. So if we've done that and that, then the next thing that we can do is we can just ease the traveller out, but we're keeping the main sheet cranked in. So we've eased the traveller out, maybe only as much as that, and it makes the biggest difference to the power that you have on the boat. Again, we want to have the main sheet in tight because it is having the leech, the back edge of the mainsail, loose, which is going to prevent us from sailing close to the wind. So we get the leech telltale, the leech tension in the mainsail by having the main sheet tight, but we can let the traveller out for the power if necessary. There we go. I hope that that sits well with everyone. And then the other thing that we can look at, and this is something that almost like for personal preservation, when I'm on a boat with a student and it's windy, if we're trying to sail upwind and I feel that the bow of the boat is kind of dipping slightly. Have I got, no, I haven't. So if I feel that the bow of the boat is dipping slightly and we're meant to be sailing upwind, that's how I know that we're not really sailing upwind. We've come off the wind, and this is generally because the main sheet isn't tight enough. So another thing you could look at while you're out sailing, if it's windy and you're sailing upwind, is the bow driving down? If it is, it's because you're not sailing high enough to the wind. Because when you're sailing close to the wind like this, if we think about what the power of the wind is doing here, it's blowing on the rig, and all of that is blowing the rig towards the back corner of the boat, which is going to lift the bows up. So if we're sailing more off the wind, have I got another? Yes. If we're sailing more off the wind, then we're not getting the rig over the back corner, the wind blowing the rig over the back corner. It's blowing more generally onto that hull, and that as well, we're going to be sailing faster, which is going to be driving this bow down. So that is why we get these pitch poles where you really don't know where it came from. Like on the thumbnail picture for this video, this was from the US Hobie 14 Nationals last year. And I'd been too used to sailing a Hobie 16, to be honest, because the Hobie 14 has got less volume than any other catamaran. If anybody can think of another catamaran with less volume in the hulls than the 14, I'd like to know about it. But which means you can't get away with anything on the 14. So the reason that pitch pole that on the thumbnail picture happened was because sailing along Ocean Springs, Mississippi, a lot of crab pots in the bay, and I went to bear away around a crab pot which just appeared in front of the boat, didn't ease enough main sheet, thought that I'd be fine because I was more used to sailing the 16, which has got a lot more volume in the hulls. But no, punished straight away. Bow goes in straight away, pitch pole, whilst sailing on the upwind leg. Yeah, painful, but good for the video. There we go. All right, so there we go. I think Paulie Paul is checking in, and or actually before Paulie Paul checks in, Levi with a question. What do you mean by reach? I'm new at this end and hear broad reach a lot, but that's one term. Can't quite. All right, yes. This is a good question that we can clear up reasonably quickly. Is we could actually break down our points of sail into 5. Surely I have another catamaran. No. Oh yeah, of course they're sailing this boat. All right, so could break it down into 5. So we all know upwind, and then all of these 3 are different types of reaches. So what if you were to say just a reach would be generally what people would describe a beam reach. So a beam reach, or as the Europeans call it, half wind, which I actually find more descriptive and perhaps a little bit more convenient to call it that, half wind, because it's halfway between upwind and downwind. But this is the beam reach. Then downwind on a catamaran is generally on a broad reaching course. So we've got beam reach, broad reach, and then halfway between sailing upwind, which is also called close hauled, because the sails are hauled in close. There we go. Halfway between close hauled and a beam reach is a close reach. So close reach, beam reach, broad reach, and then straight downwind is also called running, or running before the wind. So there we go. All right, so Paulie Paul checking in. Paulie Paul sails a C2 F18. I often pitch pole because when going downwind, my daggers wiggle back into place, which I'm guessing means drop down. Should I replace the trunk felt liner or refurbish the gel coat of the daggers? It's all worn out. Yeah. Okay. So, for those of you who don't happen to sail a C2 or a good old design F18, in the if this is the middle part of the hull, we've got the daggerboard case where the daggerboard just slots through, and the method of, like, any daggerboard in any catamaran needs some friction. So this is our F18, and then it needs some friction to stop the daggerboard from just sliding down unrestricted. Okay, so on a lot of boats, you'll actually have a little friction pad, like a rubber friction pad with 2 screws in it, which you can push inwards. You loosen the screws off, push it in if there's not enough friction to hold the daggerboard in place, or take the screw, loosen the screws, pull it outwards if you've made it a bit too tight. So the C2 doesn't have this system. Instead, it's got a nice bushy bit of carpet around the inside of the daggerboard case, which is more similar to what you'd have on a performance monohull like a 49er. And I would say the first line of attack, if your daggerboards are slipping down too easily, would be to replace that carpeted section around the daggerboard case, because Paulie Paul asked, or should I look at the gel coat on the daggerboards? I would say don't worry about the gel coat on the daggerboards, because the amount that they will wear down is not going to make this sort of difference with the friction, whereas the amount that the carpet wears over time is going to make a much more significant difference with its ability to hold the daggerboards in place. There we go. All right, so Hussein says, so when sailing upwind, the bow should never go underwater, or at least difficult to do, or at least difficult to. Yes, that is correct. So and yeah, so yeah, the reason that the bow should never go under the water is because, like we're saying, all of the pressure from the wind is pushing the rig, is blowing the rig over the back corner, which is going to lift the bows up. The only time when the bows do go under the water is if you're sailing in quite large or steep waves. Then your bows will go under the water, but not because of the wind, but because of the waves. So like if you're trapezing quite far forwards, like here, to keep the boat dead level, we don't want the boat to be slamming like this. So especially on a modern Formula 18, which has got a very rounded deck on it, so it can cut through, occasionally upwind, the water will come over the top. But on a Hobie 16, you really don't want that happening because of the shape of the hull, where we've got this very wide, flat deck compared to the hull, which means if the water goes on the top, it really is like slamming the brakes on. You might not, you know, actually you won't capsize maybe, but you'll certainly slow down a lot. So on a 16, if you feel like the water is getting close to the deck, then just move your weight slightly further back. The other thing you can do if you're sailing in waves is when you're coming up the back of a wave, just head up slightly. And then when you go over the top, bear away slightly. So that's going to stop you from digging the bows in. All right, I think I'm going to illustrate that just to illustrate it, in fact. So if we're heading up, I'm going to put the boats in first, bearing away. And then heading up. So this would be, so bearing away, this would be, we've just gone over the top of a wave. Bearing away, and then here's the next wave. So and then this is the bottom of the wave. Does everyone kind of get that? So we're going to come down like this over the top. And then when we get to the bottom, these is if there are bigger waves, then we'll head up a bit, going up the back of the wave and then we'll bear away, because what's happening by bearing away slightly over the top of a wave is that pressure, which we've just talked about, which would push the bows down, is going to push the bows down. But because we've gone over a wave, it's actually going to push the bows down, which is going to stop us from, if this is our wave here, if we don't force the bows down when we go over the top, this wave is a little bit short to scale. But when we go over the top, then the boat is going to keep going up, which is going to look super cool in pictures, but it's not going to be very quick or efficient. So when we get to about there, then we bear away, and that's going to help to bring the front of the boat down the back of the wave that we've just gone up. Yeah, but yes, the wind should never make the bows go in on the upwind. If that happens, it's because you're not really going upwind. And the main reason for not really going upwind is that you're not sheeted in enough on the main sheet. All right. Thanks very much to Ryan in Maui for the super sticker. We are keeping the Q&A ad-free. Oh, yes. That's what the super stickers are doing. Thanks very much to RJ Fleet for the super sticker, keeping the Q&A ad-free. Yes, we're keeping the Q&A ad-free. Thank you very much for all of your super stickers or super chats. Oh, and I should really pay attention to the things that are going on those stickers, but that could be distracting. Best to keep on point, I believe. All right, we've got Charlie sailing on board. Hello, Charlie. Great to have you with us. Hope you're doing okay. Hope it's not too cold in Greece. I have had the heater on in the studio. Yeah. Yeah, outdoors at the moment in Greece. I think it's been some of the worst weather that we've had in years. With just constant storms every single day, lots of rain, good for the grapes, good for the olives, but there's been flooding, destruction, and fortunately the Joyrider house happens to be at the top of a hill, so at least flooding isn't an issue. There we go. Yeah, looking forward to Christmas. Yes, Christmas is coming. Got a new Christmas tree. Thank you very much. Yes, it's a nice one. There we go. Yeah, and yeah, I'll pass on your greetings to Harry. Charlie is a young sailor and has done a lot of sailing with my son Harry out here in Vasiliki. So friends, Harry never tunes in to the Q&A. Sad face. All right. Okay, so Boris says, I just learned a couple of weeks ago from my Venezuelan friends, they have competed in Pan American Games and Olympics, but in monohulls. But I guess the same basics apply, that if you're going for speed. Yeah, I think it's pretty similar. In fact, yeah, met in Corpus Christi, Texas. I did meet a few people who were there was some Venezuelan guys, some Puerto Rican guys as well, and some of them had sailed in the Olympics. So these people probably know your people. It's important not to dive the bow as in, as it is important to have the stern in the water to create the least turbulence possible. Yeah, so yeah, it's a fine line, because what we're trying to avoid, like Boris says, is dragging the sterns of the boat. With a Hobie 16, it is different to a lot of other boats because of the hull shape, because the hull doesn't have this fat section at the back, because it has the same kind of profile all the way down the length of the hull, just getting a bit wider in the central section, whereas on more traditional shape, well, I suppose the Hobie 16 is pretty traditional, but on symmetrical shaped hulls, you've got the very wide section at the back and the very narrow section at the front, and it is much more efficient to be sailing with more of this sharp section in the water and less of the wide section. Yeah. Yes, a very fine line. Exactly. Yeah. So all right, I'm going to proceed on to the next preloaded question. Oh, and this one is actually from Boris. Boris, I've got your preloaded question here, where we're talking about non-slip on the hull. Yeah, it's a good question. I'll because it's something that I'm having to address as well. And yeah, so my story, before I go into your story, here's my story. On my Tornado Bad Boy 94, the deck of the boat, so we're going to use this picture for all types of boat. So front beam about there, back beam about there, probably not to scale, but yeah, so for non-slip and traction on the Tornado, what I've got is this section here, all of this section, and then because of the way that the Mastrom Tornadoes are made, they're made with this little V of non-slip here, so I've kept that to keep the aesthetic, even if perhaps a little bit more could be done. But on the Tornado that I have, all of this non-slip is done with basically paint, and then we got this, it's like what's used on re-gripping windsurf boards. It's like a very, very fine sand. So you paint the hull, then you sprinkle, and what we're using is ladies' tights stretched over a tin to make a very fine sprinkle shaker, and that is what's putting the grip onto the deck. And yes, it works very well, and as you would expect, the side of the hull, so on the side of the hull, we're also having this grip coming down the side, so that when we're trapezing, we've got some traction there. But what is the problem with, well, what is the bonus of this method of doing non-slip is it is the most inexpensive way of doing it, because all we're paying for is paint, and this, it's a special type of sand, but it's not particularly expensive. So it's done a great job for the boat, but and for the traction, very nice. But what's it not good for? First thing is, let's just say it like it is, the arse of your trapeze harness and the back of your legs. If you're sailing in shorts, your wetsuit, it's quite abrasive, so everything gets worn out. And my oh yes, Ryan is ahead of the game already. So yeah, everything is getting worn out much more quickly. And so my method of addressing this on the Tornado is ready for next season. What I'm going to do is these sections I am going to redo with the foam, oh, what's it? Gosh, like this rubber grip, like we have on the sidebars on the 16s, like I've been doing on the decks of the Hobie Tigers. This type of grip which is self-adhesive. And I just find that grip so good, but I'm going to do quite a lot of research into what brand of grip I'm going to go for. I really like, if you're in the USA, I've only used one type of grip from the USA, but it is so good. It is called HydroTurf, I believe. And the reason I say it's really good is because Office Hands Dave actually brought me some out from America in his suitcase to Greece when he came on holiday, enough to do the sidebars of a Hobie 16. And I think I put it on probably about 5 years ago, and it is still absolutely perfect. And for me, that is a big tick. Test done. HydroTurf, that is the stuff. So if I can somehow import some of that from the USA to Europe without getting stung import tax, I'm definitely going to be using that. Now, one thing with applying this self-adhesive rubber grip onto the hulls is you do need to make sure that the surface where you're applying this grip is smooth. So on a Hobie 16, on the hull, you've got this kind of texture that is laid into the gel coat. I don't think it's not there on the older boats, but certainly on the more recent boats, we've got this texture, and that texture is going to stop the grip from sticking particularly well. So you do have to rub it down first to make sure you get it to stick nicely. And then what I've gone for on my 16, and what I would suggest to anybody with a 16 to do, is with the rubber grip, the only place that you need to do, obviously your sidebars, important, and then this whole section here, making sure that the rubber grip comes all the way down to the edge of the gunnel, the side of the boat on the outside. So it comes all the way down there, and maybe have a bit slightly forwards of the pylon. And then if you're artistic enough, to actually have that bit, so it kind of, you could have it so it's kind of stops there. So all of that section, rubber grip, and then that bit on the gunnel, rubber grip. But perhaps don't have it go all the way to the gunnel on the leeward side, because there's more chance that it's going to drag through the water as you are going along. Now, a lot of the guys who race the 16s, they don't believe in putting anything on the hull back here, because on the race course, normally you wouldn't trapeze back here at all, really. So that's why a brand new boat like the boat I had in Hilton Head, South Carolina, USA, one of the best sailing events in history. Yeah, you should go. Why the brand new boat I had there didn't have any grip on the back was because on the race course, you're either trapezing on the sidebar or you sat on the boat. But as we know, the way of the Joyrider is to stand at the back and absolutely send it to see how fast you can make the boat go. So that is why we are doing that on the 16. All right, thanks very much to Boris for the super sticker. Hopefully this is ringing the right sort of bells. So Boris says, the abrasive part is my main concern. I will probably end up gel coating over the original non-skid and put the foam in the back and done with it. Yeah, yeah, so with the boat, before we started going to, let's not call it an extreme measure, but well, before we started really going like big on the foam grip at Wildwind in Greece. Like if we had a section of hull that had been damaged and it had been repaired, then we tried all sorts of ways to make like a print so that when the gel coat had just started setting enough to have a bit of like when it starts to go tacky, using the print in the tacky gel coat to try to replicate the original Hobie Cat grip that was put into the hull, and never had a satisfactory result with that. So yeah, unfortunately, no satisfactory result putting print into the gel coat. Yes, we've made the gel coat so it's grippy, but did it look nice? Was it seamless with the rest of the gel coat? No, never really worked to have an aesthetically perfect finish. So something else needs to be done there. But there we go, Boris. I hope that just sheds a bit of light on what I think would be the right thing to do in this case. All right. So, yeah, the next preloaded question is from Marcus from Vancouver, British Columbia. I think that is Canada. He's got an FX1. And to be honest, Marcus, I was going to do some research on this one, but didn't quite get round to it. Apologies, but we'll have a look at Marcus's question, even though I might be what you could call winging it slightly, which is Marcus has got an FX1. The FX1 has got a spinnaker, and the spinnaker system on the FX1 is an all-in-one spinnaker system. That's not very good. I'm gonna do better. In fact, let's have spinnaker pole. All right, if you just bear with me for a second, I do like drawing pictures, so we're actually. All right. So the spinnaker system on the FX1, we have the tack line. Let's put a pulley here. Tack line goes to the tack of the spinnaker. Other end of the tack line goes down here to a double block. So this part of the tack line actually goes back to the bow, ties to the end of the bowsprit, sorry, ties off here so that we have a purchase to pull the tack, the front bottom corner of the spinnaker out. And then the other end of this goes to a block on the bowsprit and then up the mast to can we have a mast, please? Thank you. All right, to the block here. So it goes from there, block on the pole. So can we have another pole? Yes, we can. Block here. So it goes from there, up there, and then to the head of the spinnaker, the top of the spinnaker. So this is the bit that, well, there's a few issues here. And then this end of the spinnaker halyard goes down here and then through the cleat on the front beam, where this then goes through a few pulleys, down through the trampoline, and then becomes the retrieval line for the spinnaker. Now, what is the problem, I hear you cry? Well, the problem is on Marcus's boat, he has got a self-tacking jib, which means he's got the track that runs here in front, which means it's difficult to illustrate this actually, but it means that this block on the spinnaker pole, if you use that one, then the traveler for the self-tacking jib can't actually go across because it's going to foul on the spinnaker halyard. So what we must do, I'm going to draw another picture. How we're going to do this is, if this is the front beam, there's the spinnaker pole, and there is the track for the jib. Yeah, I probably should have prepared this one. This is quite tricky. Then what we need to do is we need to mount a block. If we're going to keep the system almost identical to how it is at the moment, we need to mount a block which basically is going to replace this one, so that, you know, it might have to be a block that's coming from the center of the dolphin striker, a block which is here, so that the line coming in, this line, rather than going through there, is going to go around this block and on the inside, at the back side of the self-tacking jib track. Because if it goes in front of the self-tacking jib track like it does as standard, then the jib, it's just not going to work. The jib isn't going to be able to go from one side to the other. So that is the only way, that we mount a block so that it goes behind the jib track and then up. So there we go. That is the unfortunate truth. The other way that we could do it is, because of the curve in the jib track, we can put a block kind of like here, so that this line comes in, this bit part of the line. So this would actually be the other way round, comes through this block and then up the mast. But that is coming quite far out, which could affect your mast rotation. So not sure how that would work. So there we go, Marcus. Not the best solution, but the best solution out there these days is on all of the modern Nacras. And I'll look through my photographs on the Nacras and see if I can, or I could look on, or you could look online and find a diagram for the Nacra single line spinnaker system that works with the self-tacking jib, because it works absolutely perfectly. All right, there we go. Okay. Yeah, so Boris, back to the live chat. Boris says, I've done it. We're talking about the print for the gel coat. The mold for the non-skid, very hard to get it right. All right. Levi says, do you have any indiscernible information when new Hobie 16s start to be made again? No, I have zero information on that topic, I'm afraid, at this time. Yeah, I'll reach out to some of the people that I know at Hobie Cat. Like, I'm pretty sure that Hobie Cat Europe, if you wanted a new Hobie 16, would be able to supply, but Hobie Cat USA, zero chance at this time, unfortunately. You might, the only way of getting a new 16 at the moment would be that there are dealers in the USA who have Hobie 16s in stock, which is why if you find someone with a Hobie 16 in stock and you're keen to buy one, don't hang around, because they won't have it in stock for very long. There we go. All right. So Ryan says the reimagined class is really interesting. Do they have a YouTube channel for restoration fun? Following up on I hope everybody saw the amazing restoration of the Nacra 5.2 that was out last Sunday in a Show Us Your Cat very extra special. Yeah, because John Forbes, who renovated the Nacra 5.2, has also renovated a whole fleet, I think like 12 Hobie 18s. And the job that he does on these taking these old boats, like sometimes out of a bush or something, absolutely unloved boats, and refurbishing them to the point where they're looking almost new, is incredible. So do check out last Sunday's episode of Show Us Your Cat. It was really quite a great thing to see this boat being brought back to life. It also takes a bit of a dive as in a look at how Nacra originally came to Australia. Yeah. But does John Forbes have a YouTube channel where he documents the restoration process? I don't think so. He's got several Facebook pages for different types of boat. But what I would do, if you want to know more about the restoration stuff and the different pages that John has on Facebook, especially, would be to just go to the Hobie 18 Reimagined Facebook page and just send John a message. He's a super friendly guy. Yes, he's won an Olympic medal. Yes, he is one of the proper catamaran sailing royalty. But yes, super friendly guy and really happy to help anybody who asks questions. So reach out to John. Seems like a very nice guy indeed. And I'll certainly be hooking up with John when I go to Australia. Might not be in the next couple of weeks because I haven't got a passport at the moment. That is big news for me. All right. So Boris says, thanks for all your answers to my questions. Always on point. Thank you very much, Boris. All of them are pointing to getting in the Hilton Head Regatta next year. Yeah, that's the only one that I have actually confirmed. And yes, I'm going to be running another racing clinic before the actual regatta. So if you haven't raced before, or if you've just done a small amount of racing, or if you've done a lot of racing but always find yourself at the wrong end of the fleet, then yes, join the racing clinic. I'm going to recruit another, let's say, another pro coach who's going to be helping me a bit more this next year, so that then we can do a bit more on boat handling as well, because I think this year we could have done well by talking about boat handling a bit more rather than going straight into the racing. So I don't know what Mr. Bone Crusher has got in mind, whether it's going to be a 3-day clinic this next year. But either way, it is definitely the best regatta you could go to, which really is a great one for the end of the season. And there will be boats available to charter, and everybody should go, and we'll hang out. We'll have a few drinks. Nice. All right. We got Anthonius. Greetings from Croatia. Nice to have you on board. I learned some Croatian, but no, sorry, it's gone at this time. Don't want to embarrass myself with trying to speak the language. All right. So Levi says, I'm in the USA, sadly. Yeah. It's a tough situation at the moment for Hobie Cat, because obviously they're trying just to keep everybody's really down on the plastic kayaks. But the thing is, if it wasn't for the plastic kayaks, Hobie Cat would have probably finished by now. That would have been it. So that is sadly the only thing for a lot of the Hobie dealers and manufacturers is that's the only thing that's keeping the company going. So somehow we need to have this revival of fiberglass catamarans from Hobie to make it so that it is justified, or a big sponsor who could come in and sponsor Hobie to make Hobies. Yeah, someone who's very enthusiastic. Yeah. All right. Declan is with us. Hello, Declan. Great to have you on board. Just dropping a big wave to all here. Best wishes for your weekends. Thanks, Joe, as always, for your invaluable advice and content. Very exciting to see how Joyrider TV is developing. Yes. So at the moment, I'm actually working with Declan on the big project. And the big project is the Joyrider app that is coming out for the start of next year. The app is going to have many different bits to it. And in fact, I could just go to a different window for a more concise explanation. It's going to be kind of like Strava for the speed stick. Yes. As well as it being Strava for the speed stick, very accurate and very reliable. And we're also going to, on the app, be hosting a number of different leaderboards, kind of like depending on where you're sailing, what type of boat you're sailing. We could even introduce an age of boat handicap system. So if you do 18 knots on a Hobie 16 from 1976, it goes into the handicap computer and another number comes out. So the guy on the brand new boat, he's going to have to go quite a bit faster to beat you on corrected time. Yeah, but a number of different leaderboards on there. We're also, this is going to be an interesting one, going to have a part of this app which is kind of like a bit like a dating app, maybe, where we are going to be looking at finding crew for people who need crew and finding a boat that needs a crew for people who want to crew. So it's going to be like a really great source of coming together. We're going to have maybe a sailing club, sailing fleet, where people sail catamarans database on there as well. There'll be chat opportunities on there. There'll be a lot going on there. And we're going to have it ready for the new year. So next year's speed stick can be hosted on the app. But if you happen to have your favorite GPS watch, don't worry, because we'll still be taking speed stick entries using the traditional methods, and then I'll be entering them by hand with my fingers. So there we go. That's pretty much what we're working on, but also on the classroom series that is coming soon. I think I did mention that a few times at the start. So exciting times on Joyrider TV, making the most of this bad weather in Greece to spend a bit of time in the studio working away on various projects. Yes. All right. So NSC Viper 16 says, if it helps, Joe, I can send some photos of our Viper, which has a very nice, a self-tacking jib and single line spinny setup. Perfect. Yes, please. I'll just write my email address. Total Joyrider at iCloud. Yeah, if you could send me pictures, that would be amazing. And then I can help Marcus by sending your pictures to him. Thank you very much indeed. All right. Ryan says Declan equals wizard. Yes. Everybody needs a wizard working along, helping with projects. Everyone needs a wizard. All right. Levi says it's hard to find Hobie waves here in the USA too. The kayaks are super cool. I definitely support that part of the business too. Yes. Continuing, Hobie should hire this guy in Greece named Joe. I don't know him. To be their spokesman to make fun ads and videos for them showing how fun Hobie 16s are. Just saying. Yeah, I was thinking earlier on this week that something I really want to do is to do a remake of Sharing the Wind. Sharing the Wind, if you haven't seen it, I think you can just look for it on YouTube, and a few people have uploaded it. It was a movie. I think it was made by Bruce Brown, who made the Endless Summer movies. So it's got this kind of surf documentary kind of vibe to it, and it's some guys Hobie sailing, and they go to Hawaii. One thing leads to another, and they end up sailing Hobie 18s in massive waves. It is essential viewing for anybody who is into cat sailing, because it still holds up now, you know, like getting on for 50 years later. It is still an epic movie. And back when would it have been? Late 90s. Hobie Cat Europe did sort of like a bit of an attempt at a bit of a remake, where they took I think it was like 4 or 5 Hobie tigers to the south of France, or might have been to the west coast of France, and sailed the tigers in waves. But it was really cool. If you YouTube searched Hobie tiger waves, it should come up with it. And very cool, but it only touched the surface. So yes, if anybody wants to bankroll a remake of Sharing the Wind, which could put Hobie Cat sailing back on the map. It's never left the map, by the way. It's only the ability to get hold of new boats which has left the map. Then let me know. All right. All right. All right. And Ryan is straight in there saying, that's a good idea. I've got good production grounds. Yes, Ryan. We will come and film it on your home turf. Declan says, was the 1980s version of Breaking the Wind. I believe that to be that could be true. Yes. All right. So this last question is a really interesting one, which I've never ever in all my days thought about. And this is from Eric in Niceville, Florida. Sails a Hobie 16. Eric's Hobie 16 has got the Lexan rudder blades. Now, those are the rudder blades that are made of a very hard plastic, which if you knock on it, it sounds like you're knocking on a piece of metal. So I don't actually know what that material is made of, but let's just say they are not the best rudder blades, because they bend and they can just snap. And when a Lexan rudder blade snaps, it's not like breaking a fiberglass rudder blade, where it's like a jagged kind of like snap with bits poking out. It's a very clean break, almost like if you broke a piece of chocolate. In fact, yes, they are chocolate rudder blades. But yes, so Eric broke one of these rudder blades. And all right, let's just read. I heard a loud snap. I was looking at the rudders. They looked fine from what I saw, but then a gust of wind came, and like before, I headed more downwind, bit of speed, and I was doing this typically gently, not a sudden yank with the tiller extension, and she did not respond. In fact, she headed up into the wind, had to sheet out quickly and hard, glanced back, and I could tell there was no rudder on starboard, and the water around the port rudder was swirling. Sorry, I need to scroll. Best I can tell, I cavitated. The only remaining rudder lost all steering until I slowed down. So very interesting. And I've thought about it and I kind of know what was going on there. Like, here we are. If we sail, should I? Yeah, I'm going to do this. Oh, if we sail with a traditional hull shape, like a boat with symmetrical hulls, and we've got one rudder in the water, then the flow of water is going to work, whether it's the windward or the leeward hull, because the flow of water is pretty much the same on both sides. As long as obviously we're not flying the hull. So the water is just going to come down like this. So the rudder on a symmetrical hulled boat should work. However, on a boat with an asymmetric hull, it's down here good. Yeah. Let's start again. Need to get this right. So asymmetric hull. So if we were to look down on our asymmetric hull, it would have more of this shape. So the rudder and all of the force from the water, kind of like if this was, yeah, so this is the windward hull on here. In fact, I've got this the wrong way round for the wind, but we can see. So the force of the water is kind of like on that side of the hull. So this is our high pressure. We've got low pressure here because especially if we're lifting the hull a little bit, there is very little water going on that side of the hull, which means the flow of water coming around the windward hull, the windward hull, it's kind of doing this. And then when it gets to the back, there's a chance that because of the way that the hull curves inwards here, there might be it might be just foam basically that we've got here. But by the time we get to the rudder blade, we certainly haven't got a good flow of water on this side. And what this also made me think is this is why people lifting their windward rudder when they're racing is so effective. Or, you know, I was a bit of a non-believer until this week, in fact, but in the lifting the windward rudder. But thinking about this, because the flow of water is going to be on a Hobie 16, especially, or 14, or asymmetric hold boat like your Prindles as well, is going to be so kind of like weird and messed up on the windward rudder that to just get it out of the water is going to make such a difference to the drag, because not only is like if we've got turbulent water here, what it's going to do is grab hold of the rudder blade and it's going to be kind of sucking a little bit. Yeah. So I do now believe in the one rudder method for racing. Doesn't mean I'm necessarily going to do it, but I believe in it. That's the thing. So that is why in Eric's situation where he snapped the leeward rudder blade, when he was left with just one rudder blade, it hardly worked at all when the boat was sailing at speed. There we go. I think I've just done a bit of detective work there. I'm quite happy with that. All right. So we've got Dave 1082 on board. Hello, Dave. Sharing the Wind is from the 70s when the Hobie 18 first came out. Starred Dean Froome, world champion. Okay. Dan Williams. Hello, Dan. Nice to have you with us. Dan says racing against Dean Froome this Sunday in Kaneohe Bay, Hawaii. Nice. That is epic. Maybe if he's up for an interview, Dan, you could do an interview as a roving reporter for Joyrider TV and just ask him about how it actually was, the filming of Sharing the Wind. That would be amazing to know, because it all is so perfect. The video, you think, surely that must, the bit where he sails over the sand dunes and then into the whatever it is, the other side, like the lake, the other side, and puts the rudder back down, the dog's there. How many tries did that take to work? Amazing. All right. Dave 1082 says, I broke so many Hobie Cat rudders before they changed to Lexan. Had to make wood rudders covered with fiberglass. My friend even started an unbreakable Hobie Cat rudder company. Nice. Yes. Yeah, actually, I had a similar experience. I think my timeline is possibly a few decades after yours, but when I was sailing Hobie 16s, and perhaps one of the reasons I'm so enthusiastic now about the Hobie 16 was I actually had to ban myself from sailing Hobie 16s for about 10 years, working at Wildwind Sailing Holidays, where it's windy every day and we send it every day. I would be probably snapping one rudder blade on average. I think one rudder blade every 3 weeks as an average when I was sailing Hobie 16s. So I absolutely, because I was also the manager, so I had to ban myself from Hobie 16 sailing, because Hobie Cat Europe were great for replacing them under warranty, but it didn't help when you had to send 6 rudder blades to France and then wait for 2 months to get the replacement. Yeah, it was a time. So those were actually the White Knight rudder blades, which are the ones that used to say carbon reinforced foil. And the reason why this is the same construction that Hobie Cat use on the Hobie Tiger, the FX1, the Hobie 21, Bobby Bruce in the house, and boats like that, which on the bigger boats, they're fine because the rudder blade has got so much more protecting it from that sideways pressure. Because on the bigger boats, you've got centerboards, daggerboards, you've got more hull in the water, whereas on a Hobie 16, all you've got is a little bit of hull and then all that pressure taken by the rudder blade. Also, the rudder stock on the 16, much smaller, less deep. So the only part of the rudder blade is a very small top section, which is supported by the stock. Whereas the rudder stocks on like your Hobie 18 and more modern Hobies was only an inch bigger, but it made such a big difference for the loading on the rudder blade, which meant less likely to break your rudder blades. So my comeback to Hobie 16 sailing was when Hobie Cat brought out the EPO 3 rudder blades, and immediately when we were told those rudder blades were coming, I bought 12 of them, which they were a lot cheaper when they first came out, by the way. And those 12 rudder blades, that's quite a while ago now, must have been about 2016, maybe 2015. 10 years later, we've only had one of them break. That is how strong the EPOs are. Rudder blade for life. There we go. That is my rudder blade story. Okay. Yeah, Levi says, I'll definitely be watching Sharing the Wind. Dave says, how many boats expected in Kaneohe? Dan says 10 or so. Nice. That's going to be very cool. Please ask Dean Froome to come on Joyrider TV. Yeah, I think when I come to Hawaii, obviously I need to do some location scouting, you know, experience what life is like in Hawaii, then I will obviously be looking to meet up with all of the legends, present and past, of that area, and do some things. All right. So Ryan says Dan is integral to the Hawaii cat revival scene as the Pacific Nacra dealer, racing the legends. Nice. Really appreciate the good work that you do, Dan. And thanks, Ryan, for spilling the beans. It's always good to know. All right. So just Martin in there at the end. Always nice to see your Q&A. I tell you what, it's almost a miracle that we've made it to the end with the state of the internet and the electricity before I started. But thanks for coming with me on this ride. Thanks very much for all of the super stickers, keeping the Q&A ad-free. This Sunday speed stick update video. There we go. Unfortunately, if you're sitting on a speed stick result, it's now too late to get into this video. If you submit any speeds, they will be going into the end of year special, where we will be announcing who has sailed faster than me on a non-foiling boat this year, and they will be winning prizes this time round, because I am pretty sure I'm not going to be going sailing anymore this year. So there we go. All right, last one. Oh, is that Martin in Germany? If it is, hello, Martin. If it's not, hello, Martin. Dave says, I think Oahu is the only island with a cat fleet. They don't like boats on the beach on Maui. Yeah, Ryan's got, I think, a small fleet on the beach somewhere in Maui, so he's somehow getting away with it. Anyway, thanks very much. See you on Sunday for the speed stick video. And if not, I'll see you soon with some more on Joyrider TV. Thank you very much. Thank you.